Constance I, Queen-Regnant of Sicily, gave birth and breastfed in the streets so nobody would suspect that her son wasn't hers. If that doesn't interest you, what else can? Constance was born on November 2nd, 1154 in Palermo. Her father, Roger II of Sicily, died in early 1154, leaving his wife, Beatrice of Rathel, pregnant. Though he had been married thrice, King Roger only had one son to succeed him, William, who did. Beatrice of Rathel gave birth a few months later to Constance. Constance was growing up while many confusing events took place around her. Stephen du Perche, the unpopular chancellor, was forced to flee the country after a rumor spread that he was planning to put his brother on the throne and marry him to Constance to legitimize his reign. That, of course, didn't happen. In fact, it was prophesied that her marriage would destroy Sicily, so Constance was kept locked up in a convent. Of course, the fact that she had a strong claim to the Sicilian throne would have been another reason to leave her there. She remained there as a nun until she was 30. When we think of marriage in Constance's era, we tend to think of children being betrothed and married off very early in their lives. That wasn't even close to the case with Constance, who was only betrothed at the age of 30, extremely old for a woman of her time. 2 years later, on January 27, 1186, Constance married her betrothed, Henry VI, King of Germany. The King of Sicily needed the alliance, and while some nobles opposed the match, saying it would bring Sicily under German influence, he didn't think that would happen. A few decades earlier, in 1166, her half-brother King William I, who had succeeded their father, died and left the throne to his son, William II. William married but did not have any children, and his younger brother died before him, leaving Constance as the sole heir to Sicily. William II had had the main nobles in his country swear loyalty to her before she left to be married, but of course, that didn't work. One of the nobles who had to swear loyalty to Constance, Tancred, seized the throne for himself. Despite the fact that he was illegitimate, he had the support of many nobles. William II's widow, Queen Joan, supported Constance and openly opposed Tancred. She was put under house arrest and her estates were confiscated. Since Constance's father-in-law, Frederick Barbarossa, was away on crusade, Constance and her husband Henry had to stay in Germany to keep order, so they couldn't press their claim on Sicily. When Frederick Barbarossa died, Constance and Henry were crowned emperor and empress, and they could finally go and take back Sicily. The northern cities were all too eager to welcome her to the country and opened their gates to her. Salerno, the city that had been Constance's father's capital, invited her to rest at her father's palace. When the army met resistance at Naples, everything went wrong. During the long siege of Naples, many in the army succumbed to disease, and even Henry fell ill. Henry of Welf, a cousin of Emperor Henry, ran off to Germany to tell everyone that the emperor was dead and that he would be a great successor. This weakened position caused the still very much alive emperor to withdraw most of his forces from Sicily, leaving Constance there with a small garrison. Seeing that Tancred would most likely be the victor, the cities that had opened their gates to Constance switched sides. Salerno, where Constance was staying, wanted to gain Tancred's favor, so they besieged Constance at her father's castle. Constance made a speech on the balcony, telling them to please leave her in peace, but they didn't. Constance locked herself in the room and prayed. In the end, Constance agreed to be taken prisoner so long as the German garrison was left unharmed. Tancred took her prisoner while she was dressed head to toe in her attire as empress. Tancred's wife, Sibylla, kept a close eye on Constance. Tancred had her eating with and sleeping near Constance. Sibylla noticed that the people were beginning to seem sympathetic to Constance, and suggested to her husband that they execute her, but he did not agree. It would be obvious that he killed her if Constance died, and he couldn't risk losing his popularity. Tancred treated Constance with honor and respect, a thing which Sibylla opposed, as she believed it would only strengthen Constance's claim in the eyes of her and those around them. Though Constance was kept under heavy watch, she was not treated badly during her captivity. Meanwhile, Constance's husband, Emperor Henry, refused to negotiate with Tancred, knowing his strong wife could tolerate captivity. Tancred refused to allow her to be ransomed unless Henry agreed that he was the legitimate king of Sicily. Henry went and whined about this to the Pope, who threatened to excommunicate Tancred if he did not release Constance. Tancred agreed to release Constance as long as the Pope recognized him as King of Sicily, so she was let go in 1192 and was reunited with Henry a few months later. Henry, of course, wasn't about to let Sicily go. Before Henry could invade, however, Tancred died. Henry and Constance invaded, deposed Tancred's son, and had themselves crowned King and Queen of Sicily. By that point, 40-year-old Constance was pregnant. At such an old age and almost a decade after her marriage, people of her era would have had a hard time believing that she was actually with child. It was rumored that she planned to claim a butcher's child as her own, so to dispel the rumors, she had a tent set up in the market square and invited the town matrons to come and visit the birth. After having her son there, she returned a few days later to breastfeed him. If only Mary of Modena had done that. Henry returned to Germany soon after, but Constance stayed behind and ruled Sicily in her own name. Henry did have Queen Sibylla's brother hanged due to Constance's imprisonment. However, Henry gained a reputation for being a tyrannical ruler in Sicily, and there were many revolts against his rule. There was even a plot to murder him, but once he found out, Henry had all his prisoners blinded, even the German ones. Henry died in 1197, and it was rumored that Constance had murdered him, but the people of Sicily rejoiced anyway. Constance had her son crowned King of Sicily, with her ruling as regent. Her son, Frederick II, grew up in the beautiful Hauteville, Sicily, and enjoyed spending time there more than being Holy Roman Emperor. Sicily would be neglected by Frederick's descendants, the Hohenstaufens, and would eventually become a poor backwater. Constance did not live to see her son become Holy Roman Emperor, dying in 1198 at the age of 44. It turned out that it was her holding the country together. Her death was followed by decades of violence and civil war, until her husband reached his majority and pulled Sicily back together. Dante Alighieri, a very judgmental man, features Constance in his Divine Comedy. She isn't languishing in hell with the Greek heroes, she's enjoying her eternal life in heaven. Dante writes of her, "This other radiance that shows itself, to you at my right hand a brightness kindled, by all the light that fills our heaven. She has understood what I have said, she was a sister, and from her head too by force, the shadow of the sacred veil was taken. But though she had been turned back to the world against her will, against all honest practice, the veil upon her heart was never loosed. This is the splendor of the great Costanza, who from the Swabians' second gust engendered the one who was their third and final power."